version of 125x is going to be 5x, because 5 times 5 is 25, and 25 times 5 is 125. And the cube version of 27y is going to be 3y, because 3 times 3 is 9, and 9 times 3 is 20.
Okay, so now that we've found the cubic version of a and b, which is going to be 5x for the 125x, and then 3y for the 27y cubed, we're going to go ahead and plug in the a and b into the equation. So we're going to plug in the 5x into this a, and then the 3y into this b that follows that a right here. And then we're going to plug that 5x into the a squared. And we're going to minus 5x times 3y, because it's a times b right here, and then we're going to do plus 3y squared. Okay, so now that we've gotten this equation, we're going to again bring down the 5x plus 3y. We always keep this first set of parentheses the same because there's no like terms to combine. And then we're going to distribute the 5x squared, which is going to equal 25x squared, because 5 squared is 25, and then you always want to square the variable that follows the coefficient. And then we want to distribute this negative 5 to the 3, so it's going to be negative 15, and then carry over these two variables. So it's just going to be x and y, since you can't really combine them since they're not like terms. And then we're going to take this 3y and square that. So 3 squared is going to be 9, and then square the y, so it's going to be 9y squared. And that is going to be your final answer. 3x plus 3y is equal, or times 25x squared minus 15xy plus 9y squared is equal to the 125x cubed plus the 27y cubed that we started off with. Okay, so now that we've gotten through example number 1, we're going to go ahead and move on to example number 2.
Okay, so our number 2, our problem is going to be 64x cubed plus 125. Okay, so we're going to start out finding our a and b, and our a is always going to be this first number right here, 64x cubed, and our b is going to be highlighted in this orange yellow color right here for 125, and we're just going to write that for right here, 125, and then our a is going to be 64x cubed.
Alright, so now we want to find the cube version of these a and b values, and 64, the cube version of that is going to be 4x, because 4 times 4 is 16, and then 16 times 4 is going to equal 4, and then you always carry over the variable that follows the coefficient. And then the cube version of 125 is going to be 5, because 5 times 5 is 25, and 25 times 5 is 125. Alright, so now that we found the cubed versions of 125 and 64x, we're going to plug it into this equation. So we're going to find our a, which is 4x, and plug that in. And then we're going to add our b to it, which is 5. And we're going to multiply this set of parentheses by a squared, so it's 4x squared, minus 4x, because that's our a, times 5, which is our b, plus 5 squared, which is also our b. Alright, so the next step in our process is going to be to distribute this equation that we've gotten right here. So again, leave this set of parentheses the same and just bring it down, and leave it as 4x plus 5, because there's nothing to distribute. There's no like terms in this set of parentheses right here. And then we take this 4x squared and we're going to square it. So it's going to give us 16x squared. And then for this negative 4x times 5, we're going to do the negative 4 times 5 first, which is going to give us negative 20. And then just bring over the x. And it's not going to be squared because there's no x behind this 5. So just negative 20x, and then we're just going to square 5, which is going to give us positive 25. And since there's no more like terms to combine within this equation, this is going to give us our final answer of 64x cubed plus 125 is going to equal 4x plus 5 times 16x squared minus 20x plus 25.
So our next step is finding the a and b once again, and our a is going to be 512x cubed, so we're just going to go ahead and write that. And then our next step is going to be finding the b, which is 216y cubed, and that's going to be, just write it right there, sorry about that, 16y cubed.
Alright, so now we want to find the cubed version of 512x cubed and 216y cubed. So for the a, the cubic version of 512 is going to be 8x, and then the cubic version of our b, which is 216y, is going to be 6y.
So now that we found our a and b, which is our 8x and our 6y, we're going to just plug that in right here to our equation, and we're going to get 8x plus 6y, parentheses right there, open parentheses, and then do 8 squared minus 8x times 6y plus 6y squared.
Okay, so now that we've gotten this equation, we're going to go ahead and distribute. So again, just take down this set of parentheses, and that's going to give us 8x plus 6y again. And then 8x squared is going to give us 64x squared minus negative 48xy plus 36y squared. Okay, so now that we've gotten this equation, since there's no like terms to combine, since we're unfoiling and not doing the actual simplifying or foiling, this is going to give us our final answer, which is going to be 512x cubed plus 216y cubed is going to equal 8x plus 6y times 64x cubed minus 48xy plus 36y squared. Alright, so we have finished the first part of this unit, which is the sum of cubes. So now that we've done that, we've mastered the sum of cubes. We're going to switch to a different equation in a different section of the unit, which is going to be the difference of cubes. So instead of having addition, we're going to have subtraction during this unit. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the difference of cubes. Alright, so before we get started, just notice that the signs are going to be different, like I said in the previous segment. Instead of a minus sign before the a and b, we're going to have a plus sign. And then our a plus b in the sum of cubes is going to be a minus b. Okay, so our first example is going to be 8x cubed minus 27, not plus like how it was in the last segment, the sum of cubes. And then we're going to go ahead and just make sure that we know, like identify the a and b. So our a is going to be 8x cubed, and then our b is going to be 27. Okay, so now that we've identified the a and b, the cubed version, we're going to go ahead and find the cubic version of the 8x cubed and the 27. So for the 8x cubed, the cube version of it is going to be 512x, and then the cube version of 27 is going to be 3 cubed. Alright, so we noticed a mistake in our last problem, the 8x cubed minus 27. It should be, the a should be 2x and it shouldn't be 512. We squared it the opposite way. So again, the a should be 2x and the b should stay as 3.
Okay, so now we're just going to go ahead and plug in our a and b, and that's going to go to 2x right here minus our y or our b, either one. We're going to do that one right there for 3, and then we're going to do 2x squared plus 2x times 3 plus 3 squared. Closing parentheses, and then you're just going to finish that one out and get your end answer.
Alright, so now that we've gotten to this point in our process of solving the equation, again, we're just going to take down this first set of parentheses and leave that as 2x minus 3. And then open another set of parentheses and square this 2x squared, so that's going to give us 4x squared. And then we're going to do, again, this 2 and the 3, multiply these two by each other, so it's going to give us 6, and then carry down that variable that follows these two coefficients. So it's just going to follow x after the 6. And then we're going to just square 3, and that's going to give us 9. And this is going to give us our final answer of 2x minus 3 times 4x squared plus 6x plus 9 is going to equal to our original equation, which was 8x cubed minus 27. All right, so we're just going to keep going steady, and we're going to move on to example number 2. And our second example is going to be 216x cubed minus 343. And remember, since we're doing the difference of cubes now, we're going to keep that minus sign instead of a plus sign like we did in the sum of cubes. So again, just identify that a and the b, and that's going to give us the a is going to be 16x cubed, and then our b is going to be this 343 that follows that. And then we want to go ahead and we want to find that cubed version of the two of them. So the cubed version of that cubed a and b right here, for 216x cubed, it's going to give us 6x. And then for that b, we're going to get 3. We're going to get 7. Because 7 times 7 is 49, and then 49 times 7 is going to give us 343.
Okay, so when you're plugging it in, you're going to use the a and the b once again to use for the a and b in our equation. So we're going to get 6x minus 7, and then you're going to get 6x squared plus 6x times 7 plus 7 squared. Okay, so now we're just going to...
Okay, so now that we've gotten our a and b and we plugged it into this equation right here, we're going to go ahead and simplify. So bring down that 6x minus 7, because that parentheses, this set right here, stays the same. And then we're going to simplify the 6x squared, so it's going to give us 36x squared. And then we're going to multiply these two numbers, 6 and 7, and then carry over the variable. So it's going to be 42, because 6 times 7 is 42, and carry this x down to follow the 42. And then we're going to square 7, which is going to give us 49. And then since there's no like terms and we're unfoiling and not foiling, 6x minus 7 times 36x squared plus 42x plus 49 is going to be our answer for the unfoiled version of 216x cubed minus 343.
Okay, so now we're on to our example 3. This is our last example for the day. And our a is going to be 9x cubed minus 1,000, because that's going to be our example question. So we put 9x cubed in the a, and then we're going to put 1,000 in the b.
Alright, so we're going to go ahead and change our example for the day, because we realized that 9x cubed doesn't have a cubic version of it. So our a is going to change to be 27x cubed, and then our b is going to be 1,000. And then we're just going to go straight into finding the cubic root of that. So the cubic root of 27 is going to be 3x, and then the cubic root of 1,000 is going to be 10. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and plug in this a and b, which we found the cubic root of the first two numbers, which were 27x cubed and then 1,000, and we're going to plug it into this equation right here. So we're going to plug in the 3x for the a, and then minus 10 from that, because that's the b. And then we're going to cube 3x, because that's our a right here in the equation, plus 3x times 10, and then add 10 squared for this part of the equation. Alright, so now that we've gotten to this equation, we're going to go ahead and simplify. So again, always bring down that first parenthesis, because when unfoiling, you don't have any terms to combine. So that is always going to just come down and stay the same. And then for this part of our equation, it's going to be 9x squared, because 3 times 3 is going to be 9x squared, and then our 3 times 10 is going to be 30, and then bring down that x to follow since there's no y behind the 10. And then we're going to go ahead and square the 10, and that's going to give us 100. Alright, so since we're unfoiling, this is going to be our last step, and this is going to give our final answer to 27x cubed minus 1,000 is going to equal to 3x minus 10 times 9x squared plus 30x plus 100.